Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Louis Rosenberg, CEO and Chief Scientist at Unanimous AI. Louis, great seeing you, my friend. How are you? Long time ago.
Yeah, I'm great. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I'm truly looking forward to this conversation. You know, Louis, I truly appreciate the work that you're doing, and you've been involved in immersive AI. Immersive realities, mixed reality systems, and an early pioneer in AI. So I really want to bring you back in the early days where you built the first mixed reality system for the U.S. Air Force in 1992. Can you take us back to that moment and share what it felt like to invent something that didn't even have a name yet?
Yeah, no, happy to talk about that. So, my background and training is in human computer interaction, and so I was doing a PhD at Stanford focused on how to use technologies to amplify human abilities, and so one of the first places I went and worked outside of Stanford was actually first at NASA, where I worked in virtual reality labs, and this was back in 1991. Virtual reality had kind of just taken off, over the last prior few years. It was totally new. The headsets were gigantic. The fidelity was really low, but it was still obvious even back then, 34 years ago, that that the technology would get to a point where you could be in an environment that really looked real and experience information in a spatial context where you could understand it way better than on a flat screen and
Mm.
be immersed with the information and whether it's educational content or engineering content or business content, you could be in an environment and really understand it at a level that you just couldn't get on a flat screen. So that was my first research. But the one thing I really didn't like in the research I was doing at NASA was that I was in this immersive space, but I was cut off from the real world around me, and it feels uncomfortable to be cut off from the real world around you for any extended period of time. You're cut off from the people who are working near you and with you, from your desk, from everything. And so what I really wanted was to be able to have this immersive experience, to be able to interact with information in the form that we were meant to interact with it as 3D spatial content, but still also interact with my office or the lab or the people around me. And so I pitched that to the US Air Force and said, hey, can we, I'd like to build a system where we can combine the real and the virtual and allow people to work in one environment with both. And I was lucky enough for them to fund me to go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and work on a system that was called the Virtual Fixtures Platform. And so the reason it's called Virtual Fixtures is that I was focused on enhancing human performance, allowing people to perform tasks well. And so I was studying people performing tasks in the real world, but you could put a virtual fixture, a virtual object in the real world that they could actually see and feel and interact with to enhance their performance. When I pitched it to the Air Force, kind of one of the applications that I had proposed was for things like surgery. So you could imagine you're a surgeon and you're performing a procedure. It's a delicate procedure and you want to allow yourself to perform better, and you're wearing a headset and you could project virtual content onto the patient. And that content would show you things that you need to see, show you boundaries, basically enhance your visual space, but also allow you to have this content be things that you can feel. And so the system that I built for the Air Force, the participants would wear a big exoskeleton that would give them not just 3D sight and sound, but 3D touch. And so the idea would be you could perform an incision, but feel this virtual fixture and allow it to actually guide your accuracy or prevent you from getting near any vital organs. And so that was this early research at the Air Force. Of course, there were no patients and there was no surgeon. It was the very first tests of what we now call mixed reality. And the task that I did was allowing people to take a peg and move it from one hole to another hole. It's called a peg insertion task. And it's a way to measure human dexterity. And so I'd have lots of human subjects come in and move these pegs between holes, and then you'd put these virtual fixtures into their world, and they could perform this task way better. And so it showed that, yeah, this idea of mixed reality could work, and this idea of enhancing human performance by adding virtual content to your world could work. And but again, it was very simple in terms of the fidelity compared to what is possible today in today's headsets. And again, that was 33 years ago. I expected that we would, mixed reality would be everywhere within 10 to 15 years. It's taken
So it's
30
taking
years, but we're
longer.
getting close. We're getting close. Meta and Google and Samsung and Apple, they really are all pushing towards having, augmented reality, mixed reality glasses that become part of our daily life. And we're
Yeah.
now within just a few years away from that happening, which is again a couple decades longer than I thought it would take, but
Yeah.
but we're getting there.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah, I mean it's a long journey. I remember when I got my feet wet first. This was like more than 15 years ago, and I really give a very big kudos to the guys who stick around and keep pushing. And or in bar, like I was having a call the other day with him. Like I remember in New York City at those meetups in early days, and now he created such a great platform, AWE, which really brings all these innovators, immersive technology. So it's really incredible to see it. Now let's go to then what happened then after founding Immersion Corporation, taking it public, and then later selling Outland Research to Google. What inner compass guided you through each of these ventures, especially when building technology that was years ahead of its time?
Yeah. So after I was at the Air Force, I again did all these tests with human subjects, and even though it was crude and it was simple, people would get out of the system and they would say, "Wow, like one day everybody's going to want to be able to interact in these virtual worlds." And so that's what motivated me to then found one of the early VR companies, a company called Immersion Corporation, which I founded in '93. And because the equipment was so expensive back then, our focus, certainly for the beginning of the company, was to create simulators for medical schools for teaching doctors to perform medical procedures as a training tool. And so we created virtual reality medical simulators, and that and really got good traction in medical schools for lots of reasons. Mostly that doctors could learn delicate procedures in an environment where they didn't feel pressured, because their alternative was to learn on patients, right? And
Yeah.
there was a saying in medical schools, which was like, see one, do one, which is you'd watch somebody, then you'd do it yourself, and there was nothing in between. And virtual reality is a way to bridge that gap. And and now 1999, the whole world shifted, and all of the energy went towards the internet, right? The big internet bubble, and so virtual reality fell out of favor for over a decade. And
The
so
internet took
at
over.
Immersion, we had to pivot a little bit. We still were making medical simulators, but we pivoted towards 3D immersive gaming and other 3D immersive environments that weren't called virtual reality as much, but it's really the same thing. And so we survived through the decades by being nimble, and the company's actually still around today, but I left in 2002, and then
Amazing.
founded an augmented reality company, Outland Research, that again
Amazing.
was early, developed technology, um, ended up being acquired by Google, but largely because really was still a decade ahead of its time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're now at a place where both of those technologies really are happening and converging. In After I sold Outland Research, I founded a new company, my current company, Unanimous AI, which is an
Yeah.
artificial intelligence company, but it follows the same premise, which is, founded Immersion because I was interested in how technology can enhance human performance through virtual reality. And I founded Outland Research to how augmented reality can enhance human performance. And then when I left, I started realizing, it's really interesting to look at how technology can enhance performance for individuals, but it becomes way more interesting when you start looking at how technology can enhance performance for groups of people, for
Yeah.
collectives of people. And that's when 2014 is when I got really fascinated with the idea of collective intelligence and really started looking at how do biological systems amplify their intelligence. And so that's what
Yeah.
Unanimous
Well,
does.
that's how you and we connected, because that was
Yes.
the beginning of my journey in crowdsourcing week when I moved from New York to Singapore, and we started to engaging each other, and I truly loved what you were doing. You spoke at some of our events, virtual events. You have you been to our actual events? I'm not sure if you've been to our physical events
No,
before.
I spoke
No,
at a
I
couple of
think
the
the
virtual
virtual, yeah,
events. Yes.
virtual events, yeah. And so what you did with Unanimous AI, you truly flipped the script on how AI is typically used, rather than replacing people, which a lot of these AI tools are are going heavy on that. You're amplifying human intelligence, right? Now, what was the breakthrough moment that made you realize this was possible through swarm-based systems? Tell us a little bit about like how that worked.
Yeah. So this field of collective intelligence has been around for over 100 years. It goes back to actually Sir Francis Galton in like 2000 or 1906 or something, where he would capture input, basically survey hundreds, 800 farmers, and ask them to estimate the weight of an ox. And if you took the the mean value, they got much smarter. And so this idea of surveying or polling large groups it turns out to really work. A group of people, if you collect data from a whole large group of people, you will get answers that are smarter than the individuals would do on their own and outperform the average person by a good amount. That is a really interesting concept. When I got involved in it, I said, we haven't really changed this for over 100 years. Um, and there's got to be a better way to connect groups of people together than just aggregating data. And
Yeah.
I said, well, what could Mother Nature teach us? And it turns out that biological systems have evolved over hundreds of millions of years, where you have large numbers of individuals, and they have to make optimized, rapid decisions or they won't survive as a species. And they become much, much smarter together than they do on their own. And this is why schools of fish form these dynamic schools, and why flocks of birds can navigate together as a group, and why swarms of bees can make decisions. They are forming systems that make them significantly smarter than the individuals on their own. And biologists call this swarm intelligence. And so when I founded Unanimous AI 10 years ago, the premise was, well, birds and bees and fish can get significantly smarter when they form these real-time systems. Maybe humans can get smarter. And so we said, let's build a first software platform called Swarm, which allowed groups of people to answer questions and make predictions and prioritize items as a real-time swarm, actually modeled on the dynamics of bee swarms. And it was a graphical interface where people they would connect, they would control with their mouse a little graphical magnet, and they would push and pull on each other literally looks like a swarm. And when we asked people to make predictions and forecasts and diagnosis and decisions, they would be consistently significantly smarter, like 20, 30% more accurate than if you use the traditional method of just collecting a bunch of input and finding a statistical answer. And the reason for that is that when the group is a system, they're actually interacting with each other. They're pushing and pulling. It becomes this tug of war where they're pushing and pulling, and they're finding the solution that that they can best agree upon, and it's a smarter solution. And so that was kind of the first generation of the technology, and it works. And we actually still sell it, because there's still lots of use cases, especially around forecasting, groups doing forecasting. But the limitation of this graphical swarming method is that the types of questions that we can ask a group need to be kind of simple questions, where we're saying, like, what's the most likely outcome of this scenario? Is this stock index going to go up
Mm.
over the next 2 weeks? Is it going to stay flat? Is it going to go down? And we can ask a simple question in that kind of structure, and groups can swarm, and they will be significantly more accurate than the individuals on their own. And that's valuable. But then we had a lot of people who said, like, we wish we could do a swarm as an open-ended questions, just having groups just hold conversations and amplify their intelligence. And so for the last few years, that's been our big focus: is how can we enable groups to form a conversational swarm, to be able to actually hold a single conversation at large scale. And so we created this new technology we call conversational swarm intelligence. And now we can allow groups up to 250 people to engage in a single conversation, and it could be open-ended. It could be a brainstorm. We could say, brainstorm all the solutions to how we could make our business more efficient. And 250 people in a single conversation can all brainstorm together, deliberate together, and quickly converge on a set of answers that are this optimized set of answers. And so the conversational systems now are really, really interesting. And so we have this new platform. We call it ThinkScape. And we just launched it last year. It's fully conversational, fully open-ended. We have users like the Department of Energy, a user of ThinkScape, where they bring together large groups of experts on different energy topics, and they can debate together, brainstorm, and come to agreements of, hey, the right solution to this problem is this, and they can get that done in an hour, where otherwise it would take them weeks of emails going around, and they wouldn't get to an answer they could really agree upon.
Amazing. Louis, you've written extensively about AI risk. I truly enjoy your articles. You also wrote the books like Arrival Mind and Our Next Reality, which was a recent one about a year ago or so. Where do you personally draw the line between optimism and existential concern when it comes to the AI development?
Yeah. So, my focus in terms of the work that I do related to AI is really about using AI not to replace people, but to connect groups of people together and make them smarter. And my reason for really focusing on that over the last 10 years is that I am actually really worried about the applications of AI that potentially replace people, not just replace people's jobs, but just replace functions in organizations that relate to decision making. When we start automating decisions, we lose human values, human ethics, human sensibilities, human interests, and it raises a lot of really significant risks. And I know people want to protect against those risks, and they want those decisions to be, they want these AI systems to make the best decisions they can. But the problem we face is that there's this illusion that these AI systems really think like humans, because they can communicate now like humans. They if you have a text conversation, they will communicate and sound human. They can fool you into being human. They will very soon have photorealistic avatars that look almost perfect. And so we're starting to believe they can talk like us, they look like us, they must have the same sensibilities as us, or the same uh, the same ethical perspectives as us, or even just the same inner workings of how their thought processes work. And they don't. Like, they're very, very different. Everything about how these AI systems work, other than kind of the metaphor of a neural network, is different than a human's. And it's dangerous to be replacing critical decisions that affect organizations and ultimately affect society with AI. And so my big push is to keep humans in the loop, and do that by making organizations smarter with people, as opposed to replacing parts of the organizations with AI decision making.
100%. That's why, we've been friends for a long time and we know each other. We've been always the big ones pushing for like always a human in a loop, designing system for humans. And I was just having one of virtual roundtables a few hours ago, and it was about the leadership in this age of AI. There's this, you have this AI here, and then you have the human here, and we just have to be very clear that human can live without an AI, but AI cannot live without the human, because human is the one who is already feeding that intelligence for the AI to become a great assistant, but not to rule over the humans. So I think we truly have to make sure that we're stick with that. And I appreciate you very much for doing such incredible work and making sure that we are really designing things for human beings. And that's not an easy take, because obviously there's a lot of people out there that are chasing the money and without really looking at some of the ethics. And I think that this is one scary part. Louis, this is a short format conversation. I'm truly enjoying this talk. Maybe we'll have another conversation for more like a longer format. We'll go deep into the subject. But I'd like to ask this as a last question for this conversation, and this is about the word bold. What does that mean to you personally?
The bold reward,
Bold word.
the word bold. Yeah, I think, I mean, the word bold, I equate it very much with the word brave, which is to take actions that are take risks because you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Being brave, believing that mission that you've had that conviction that you're going
Yes.
after. Great to have you, Louis. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Until that time, enjoy your summer. Have a great day or evening wherever you are, and be great and be bold always. Take care.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me, and have a great summer as well, Epi.
Thank you.